Apex Legends Arena has been out for nearly an entire season now, and now that the hype has most certainly come and gone around this new mode, and we have had ample time to see strategies, playstyles, and overall tactics come into play for the mode, I figured it would be a good time to go over my Apex Legends Arena tier list for all of the legends. I wanted to open by stating a few hugely important things to keep in mind as we are rating the legends. First up, in Arena, you can absolutely play a few different ways depending on your overall team composition, and I would say this is even more prevalent than the BR because you're not really forced to do any crazy rotations or movements like you might in a BR game. I actually find this is quite nice though because it does bring some of the lesser used BR legends into the fold. That being said though, when I rank the legends, I am going for overall power in fights, meaning who has the best kit to support themselves and their teammates. Also, you'll notice there is a huge emphasis on what passive and tactical abilities legends can use. These two abilities they actually get to use every round. This means you can save your purchases for leveling up guns or other resources. Ultimate abilities are good and all, but some of them come at a crazy cost, and this definitely affects some of the legends rankings. If you're new to our tier lists around here, I rank the legends as D being poor, C is fine or average at best, B is solid or good, A is amazing, and S is the best of the best. For Arena, I do not think there are any F tier legends which I would deem unusable or dumpster fire tier. Hit that like button, help support the video and the channel, and let's just jump right into it. Starting off with our D tier legends at D+, we are going to have one and only legend. This is going to be Caustic. Ever since they hit Gas Daddy with his nerf last season, Caustic just hasn't been it, and it gets more and more prevalent as the seasons go on, and people realize that you can't just walk right through that gas with little to worry about. Caustic's gas just isn't a threat anymore, and when your entire kit is based around the gas, it makes him pretty weak. The only thing Caustic really does have going for him is that the traps do still provide some level of threat to keep enemies away if they are unaware of how weak the gas actually is, and the ultimate does provide a fair amount of panic if you do throw it onto enemies. I love Caustic and I await for his return to the meta, but at the end of the day, there are other legends that can do what Caustic does, but just much more efficiently. Our first C tier legend at C- is going to be none other than Fuse. Fuse, in my opinion, is just underwhelming, and his arena kit is pretty poor since a large portion of it does revolve around consumables. Since you are limited to the amount of grenades you can carry and inventory space isn't a problem, this by default makes Fuse's passive pretty weak in my opinion. Of course, having the ability to throw grenades further and faster is great, but that on its own is a problem if any enemy is above you. As for his ultimate, it's still pretty weak and it does still need a buff, and it isn't worth the cost in my opinion. The one thing that he does have going for him is his tactical. It can be pretty clutch in terms of doing some fine damage to enemies and really weeding them out from behind cover. I await for the day Fuse finally gets his more substantial buff that is supposedly in the works, but for now, I suggest passing on him unless you want a very simple legend that does emphasize gunplay. Moving on from Fuse, we are now going to have Mirage at a plain C tier. It pains me to put him here because Mirage is honestly a blast and I always have some good laughs when playing him, but Mirage's kit is pretty weak considering Arenas is a much less random environment than the BR. It is easy to track your three opponents, and his tactical decoys are super simple and easy to manage for enemies when they are hearing them or looking at them. I do think the best part of the tactical though is that false impression of footstep sounds. This can really confuse players and it is still nice, but it's tough to pull this off in my opinion. I do love his ultimate though, and I wish it was a little cheaper considering Octane's pad is cheaper than Mirage's ultimate, and Octane's pad is now 50% longer in charge time than Mirage's in the BR. His passive Invisible Revive is cool but rarely worth it in my opinion, and because his passive and tactical are pretty weak, I recommend looking past Mirage. I will say there is still a fair amount of fun to be had on him, and I do recommend trying him if you do want just some good laughs. Next up, we have my personal favorite legend in the game, which is Crypto at C+. I can't deny it though, Crypto's kit feels really wonky in Arena. One of the best parts of Crypto is making those aggressive EMP plays, and the fact that you can't really make one of these till the third round at the earliest is a bit disappointing. This is generally though because Crypto's EMP is so expensive and you cannot pick it up every round. Crypto's passive has always been tied into his drone, which is just weird, and I am still waiting for this to get changed to give Crypto an actual passive ability. And finally, the drone is nice, and sometimes you can set up the drone in particular positions around the maps where it won't get shot, and you'll be able to survey enemies as they walk by, but for the most part, it is going to take you out of the game if you are a drone flyer, and on top of this, the super long cooldown of the drone really makes it hard to use it more than once a round, and by default, you only get one charge, which I think is a little bit disappointing. Crypto again is my favorite BR legend, and I do love his playstyle and lore, but for now, I more or less had to pass on him in Arena. Moving on, we are now going to have my first B legend at B-, and this is going to be none other than Watson. It absolutely stunned me the other day when I heard the developers were thinking of nerfing Watson, because in my opinion, she absolutely still needs a buff. She can be one of the most incredible and powerful legends to play if in the right hands of the right player, but I think for the majority, she is going to fall pretty flat. Her shield regeneration passive is nice and amazing, but to be honest, it heals just a little bit too slow in my opinion for it to really be worth it. Her fences obviously are what give her a lot of power in the BR, but in Arena, it's pretty tough to set up these fences and actually have enemies play off of them. She gets 5 fence nodes by default, which in my opinion is fairly bizarre, and her base tactical fence cooldown is just way too slow without her ultimate pylon activated. For now, I find it nearly impossible to really set up more than 4 to 5 fence nodes till she does get that cooldown reduced in Arena. I think it's worth passing on her. I will say though, Watson could definitely be an A tier legend, maybe even S tier legend if your entire team is playing with her kit in mind, but for the most part, I am ranking the legends off of their individual power and abilities. Next up, we have Revenant at B tier. Revenant did just get his heirloom and a little buff of the nearly infinite climbing, but for Arena, that doesn't really do too much. Revenant's passive has honestly always been fairly decent, but that higher climbing that he does now get doesn't really even come into play because a fair amount of the maps in Arena, there just isn't a ton of locations for Revenant to really use that higher climbing. Revenant's power in Arena for me does come through his tactical, which honestly can just be incredible. Nearly all of the top tier legends that we are going to discuss later on will get extremely nerfed when they are hit by his tactical. Legends like Pathfinder with his grapple, Gibraltar with the gun shield or the dome, Lifeline with that revive, Wraith with her Q. All of these are just a few examples of those upper tier legends that can really be amazing with their abilities, and without them, they are just normal. As for the ultimate, what can I say? Revenant's ultimate is crazy when paired up with the right legends, and honestly, it's probably a free round win if you do play it right. I'd say Revenant can definitely slide into the A tier category if you are pairing him up with an Octane or another aggressive legend, but for now, I'm going to put him at a solid B tier, which is good for making plays even on his own. I just want to take a second and say if you do have any questions or if you just want to chat, stop by Twitch where I do stream nearly daily, and I would love to chat with you about Arena or anything else Apex related. I appreciate your support. Moving on, we have a powerhouse from the past, and that is going to be Horizon. Horizon has obviously seen much better days, and I do enjoy her as a legend, so I am hoping for a little buff in the future, but for now, Horizon's kit is still decent if used properly. She has gone from being an aggressive playmaking legend with her tactical to more of a team movement legend in my opinion. Her passive of increased air maneuverability has always been incredible, and it does allow for a lot of like slipperiness in her movement. The lift is much slower than it was, but you can still make some plays with it, and I find it's still an okay ability to help the team maneuver around some of the maps like Gardens or Artillery, or even use it as an escape maneuver. The Black Hole is similar to the other ultimates in the game where I think it's just a little too expensive for it to be worth it. Not much else to say about Horizon. She is good, but she is not great, and I think the initial perceptions after her nerf might have been a little harsh since we did know what she was capable of in the past. I'd give Horizon a shot if you are looking for a legend with a fair amount of unique movement ability. Our first of 2 B+ legends is going to be Rampart. Rampart is a weird legend for me as she has always been pretty poor in the Battle Royale and requires a very un-Apex-like type of playstyle. However, in Arena, things can be slowed down to the point where I think Rampart honestly has a pretty good shot at being great. Her passive of the increased light machine gun mag size and reload speed is pretty incredible, seeing as all the LMGs are solid and she can literally just buy one every time, which helps a ton of getting use out of this passive. The barriers are also solid, but I do find they are very easy to break and don't activate quick enough in my opinion. Any decent player will break them when they are activating. It's also harder for Rampart to get angles players aren't going to expect since Arena is way more scripted than the BR. Her ultimate, though, is still pretty bad in my opinion, and I definitely don't recommend you take it. Rampart is a solid Arena legend for the defensive legends that I deem to be Caustic, Watson, or Rampart, and I think she's going to be the best of the group. And if you can get your squad to play off the barriers, either in a defensive or an aggressive fashion, I think it will excel her even further than the B+ rating I gave her. The second B+ legend and the final B tier legend is going to be Loba. Loba is another pretty odd legend to look at. Her kit, for the most part, is all around looting, which you just aren't doing any of in Arena. However, her tactical bracelet I find really makes up for what the other two abilities lack. The ability to use a ring off spawn to get to the middle quicker to have positional advantage be absolutely insane and definitely worth picking her for this alone. It also allows her to get out of fights with complete cover if necessary, and similarly to this, now that it was fixed and buffed, the bracelet is much better in an aggressive playstyle. If Loba had another passive or ultimate, I think I'd be way more inclined to recommend her over some of the future legends that we're going to talk about. I guess you can loot the middle bins with that ultimate every round, but I don't really think it's worth spending money on it. I guess though, if you are a well-coordinated squad, you might be inclined to do this so you can drop some free batteries or healing items for the squad. Next up, we are moving to our A tier legends. The first legend I deem to be amazing is going to be Valkyrie at A-. In my previous tier list for pub smashing back at the start of the season, I put her at S tier, and I think that still stands for BR due to her ultimate ability. However, in the arena, her ultimate really isn't the best pickup, and while it can be fun to literally land on people, I don't think it's really worth the money to purchase it. But for the most part, I am taking into account how incredible her jetpack and tactical abilities can be. The jetpack, while a little revealing, can still be great to really get in and out of fights with complete freedom. The tactical is also virtually a free arc star you're gonna get, which can be pretty clutch if making a coordinated push with the squad. Valkyrie is a welcomed addition to the game compared to Season 8's Fuse, and I think we are still figuring out what she is really capable of. For now though, I give Valkyrie an A- rating due to her overall maneuverability and that tactical ability that can excel in playmaking. Our second A- legend is going to be the Sweaty of Sweats, Wraith. Wraith has always been an amazing legend in Apex, and it still holds true in Arena. Wraith's smaller hitbox and size and tactical abilities still make her incredible at getting in and out of engagements when needed. It is somewhat a shame though that her passive is so useless in Arena, and this really does hold her back from her full potential in my eyes. Similarly though, her portal can have some fun playmaking scenarios, but overall it just really isn't worth using if you are going in on your own. Her portal definitely is more of a endgame BR rotation tool at first, and then secondary to that, an offensive playmaking tool. Wraith though shouldn't be slept on due to her reliance on one ability. Even though it does take 15 years to activate, it still makes her a very formidable opponent in the arena. Now at a solid A tier, and a legend that I have personally grown more attached to over the seasons, and this is going to be Bangalore. Bangalore honestly has the complete kit of abilities where everything can be useful in some cases. The passive has always been great for that extra speed when disengaging fights and really helps her breach gaps in Arena without getting hit too hard. Second to the passive though, her smokes are absolutely incredible in Arena. Bangalore's smokes are fairly cheap, and Bangalore can also optimize her loadout to go in with something like a digital threat Volt to really make her someone that can shoot her enemies with ease. Smokes are obviously good for a number of other things like reviving, breaching gaps, and confusing enemies. Her ultimate is a bit weaker though in terms of its worth in my opinion. It's expensive and some maps really just can't utilize it. However, some of the maps like Gardens or Phase Runner can have some ultimate usage from Bangalore, but I still don't think it's really worth the cost. But that's okay because Bangalore's passive and tactical are absolutely incredible. Overall, Bangalore is an amazing pickup, and any player should be able to do well with the simplicity of her kit. We now have two legends at A+. The first is going to be Lifeline. I probably had the hardest time placing Lifeline on this list over any other legend. Her revive shield is gone, and that is okay. Lifeline has now turned into a little bit more of a support healer with that drone that heals up way more efficiently than it did in the past. It feels pretty good to be able to run up to my teammates and drop the drone on them and actually heal them up quicker than I could before. The revive of 2 friendlies is pretty great too, and Lifeline that takes a gold bag every round is going to be absolutely annoying for opponents to face. To my knowledge though, the care package really isn't worth picking up, and that is okay. I think if it did have some usefulness though, I would be putting her even higher than the A+ I have her at. At the end of the day though, I love to run Lifeline with something like a G7 sitting back with the teammates, and then if they get picked off, I can easily revive them to 120 health with my gold bag, and then surprise the enemies that are making that push. The only reason I didn't put Lifeline in S tier is because she still doesn't have any playmaking abilities, and she is a very reactionary legend. Love Lifeline. I think she's an amazing arena pickup. Our final A+ legend before we get into the S tier legends is going to be Pathfinder. This is another legend who I bounce back and forth with on where to place on this list. I just couldn't put Pathfinder at S tier because he does not have a real passive ability for Arena. But wow, does that grapple really make up for what he lacks in the passive area. The grapple has always been an amazing, crazy playmaker for getting drops on enemies and just getting into the action faster. The removal of low profile really helped him out a little bit in terms of balancing his overall ability to make plays. And I think Pathfinder has really come in well over the past few months, and it definitely shows up in Arena. Of course, the zipline is still solid at getting you into the fight and getting the whole team rotated to the center of the action much faster. I think Pathfinder might be my main legend at the moment, and honestly, I don't know if a legend has had more changes than Pathfinder has. Can't go wrong with Pathfinder, and if he ever gets a proper passive ability, he more than likely will be S tier for me. It is time for our S tier legends for Arena. First up, we are going to have the tried and true legend, Bloodhound. Bloodhound had a small nerf of the active scan time, but there is still something about those wall hacks that is incredibly useful for the entire squad. Not only do you get a couple scans by default, they are also pretty affordable. Their passive is pretty poor though, and not terribly useful, but it can be helpful for finding those rats that are hiding. Finally, Bloodhound's ultimate is just incredible for aggressive playmaking, and it really does add up to give your team even more knowledge of the enemy's whereabouts. I still just can't get over the fact that in most games, an ability that would be deemed cheating with wall hacks is something Bloodhound can use pretty frequently. Definitely pick up the Hound if you do want a great legend that can do it all. Next, we are going to have the big guy, Gibraltar. Gibraltar has always been an insane legend, and this is even more prevalent in Arena, where straight up fights are frequent. The gun shield adds an extra 50 health to Gibby and makes him a huge powerhouse. This paired up with Fortified lets him act like a legend that has 225 to 240 health right off of the first round. If this wasn't enough, he can excel at peeking enemies with little to no repercussions, since that gun shield does protect him and save on those valuable healing items. The dome is still solid at playmaking and making rotations easier and getting those clutch gold bag revives. Gibraltar's ultimate is similar to Bangalore's though, where it isn't incredibly useful, but it does have some use case scenarios. Gibraltar for BR and competitive has always been a must-have pickup, and for Arena, in my opinion, it is no different. And finally, after multiple seasons of Octane excelling in the game and him being absolutely incredible in the meta of Apex Legends, I have completely jumped on board with how good Octane is at all levels of gameplay. Casual to competitive, pubs to ranked, BR to arena, bronze to masters, Octane can do it all. He's got that passive that heals him over time that is incredibly important in a mode where healing items can sometimes be hard to come by, a tactical that helps him gain positioning faster than most of the other legends in the game, and an ultimate that is cheap and lets the entire team rotate to the middle faster than any other legend out there. There's nothing Octane can't do, and the simplicity of his abilities really makes him a easy to master level pickup for all players of all skill levels. He's my go-to recommendation for first legends to unlock, and my go-to recommendation for a legend that can be used everywhere in Apex Legends. So I do have one question for you, and that is, who is your go-to legend? Drop a comment down below and let me know. Of course, guys, it's worth saying that this is all my opinion, and how you play the game is going to be very different than how I am playing the game. And to be honest, every legend other than a couple are completely viable if you are using their abilities to the fullest. If you are ever looking for someone to play with or chat about Apex or gaming in general, join our community Discord. Links to that, my Twitch and Twitter are all down below. Till next time, I will see you live in the Twitch streams. Peace out.